Food is fuel for your body, your mind, and definitely your sport. But let's face it, nutrition is confusing, and the expectations on girls and women to be thin and have a six-pack are exhausting. If you've ever been frustrated with your body, confused about nutrition, obsessed with eating healthy, or guilty when you don't, underate, overate, or overtrained, and overwhelmed with all the pressure, then this podcast is for you. Nutrition can be easy, you can take control of it, but it might start with letting go of control by asking for help and making a change. I'm Lindsay Elizabeth Cortez, sports dietitian and owner of Rise Up Nutrition, where I empower female athletes to overcome nutrition concerns and perform at their highest level, to stop being confused by all the mixed or harmful messages, and finally have confidence in your body as a fierce, fit, and fueled female athlete. Hey fans and listeners, it's Lindsay Cortez, your registered sports dietitian and host of the podcast. I'm so excited today to have two guests together on this episode. Zoë Rom, she is the host and producer of Your Diet Sucks, and Kylee Van Horn. She is the co-host as well of Your Diet Sucks and registered dietitian. So Zoë is a journalist, runner, and writer who lives in Western Colorado and covers the environment, public land policy, nutrition science, and endurance sports. And to be honest, that is the only bio she gave me. And she has so much more that I can share about her. So I'm going to go off a little bit and tell you a little bit more. She's the former editor-in-chief of Trail Runner magazine, an entrepreneur with her own coaching business, Microcosm Coaching, author of her book, released in August 2023, Becoming a Sustainable Runner, a guide to running for life, community, and planet, a podcaster, a great trail and ultra runner herself. She's been a longtime contributor to several major running, outdoor health, and fitness media outlets as a journalist, writer, including Trail Runner magazine, Outside, and the New York Times. Just to brag a little bit, because she's not the person to do so, but she's very accomplished. She has some notable performance in the running realm, including top 10 and sub 24-hour finish at the Run Rabbit 100 in 2023. She has top finishes at UTMB Puerto Vallarta and UTMB, I might not say this right, Valhall. And she also holds...
I'm not sure how to pronounce it, so your guess is as good as mine.
Excellent. She also holds the overall unsupported but still fastest known time on the Buffalo River Trail, fastest known time of the renowned Colorado 14er Capitol Peak. She's placed first at the Crested Butte 100K and is the two-time winner of the Athens Big Fort Trail Marathon and War Eagle 50K. I think that's a more suitable bio.
I like to keep it tweet length, but I'll take it.
Okay, Kylee, feel free to send me more stats afterwards. I was trying to find everything I could about you, but I actually feel like I know Kylee a little bit just in the virtual space because she is a fellow registered dietitian and sports dietitian. She has her bachelor's in biology, actually pre-veterinary medicine, and then human nutrition from Metropolitan State University in Denver. She completed her dietetic internship through the University of Northern Colorado. She founded her own business, Fly Nutrition, in 2018, focusing on nutrition for sports, running, triathlon, and essentially endurance sports. She also does run coaching as well. She writes monthly nutrition columns published in Outside Run magazine. She's written for Faster Skier, Gnarly Sports Nutrition, and once again, a really accomplished endurance athlete herself, both trails, road, all the things. So I hope that gets our listeners super excited to hear what you have to say. And welcome to the podcast.
Stoked to be here.
Excited.
Yeah. So when we have two guests, feel free to, both out. I might direct some questions to each one of you, but I first want to know about the podcast that you two are co-hosting right now called Your Diet Sucks. When did you start that podcast?
We had the idea for it last spring. We had been interested in, it's sort of the classic tale of like two best friends think that they should start a podcast, but I actually really did think that we should start a podcast because of our particular professional experience.
Yeah.
Because I think we looked around at the endurance and the sort of the run and fitness and health space, and there's not a lot of like as well researched and reported sort of dual host podcasts. So there was a gap in the marketplace. And it was a gap that we could fill with something that is deeply personal to both of us. I have been in recovery, eating disorder recovery for almost a decade. And Kylee has helped tons of like people along their recovery journeys, along their Red S journeys. And I thought that those really particular, like the professional, like, you know, I'm a journalist, she's a registered dietitian nutritionist. We've got the professional cred. But I thought what made it really interesting was our personal connection to the subject matter.
Yeah. So how did you two meet? How far back does your friendship go?
I met her when I was writing a story about her husband trying to set the world vertical skiing record. And so I was there as a journalist, just sort of like checking it out. And she was there crewing her husband. And I was like,
yeah,
well, this guy is really intense, but I'm pretty into his wife. So it's a classic endurance sport meet cute in a warming hut on the top of a ski mountain.
When was that? That was like
2017?
No, I think it was 2019, I think.
Yeah, that's awesome. And Kylee, your journey with sport goes way back too. I mean, you were a runner growing up. Running's kind of like in your family as well, right? So like endurance sports have kind of been in your blood for a long time.
Yeah, that's what. Yeah, and we go through our traditional dietetics training, and I was like, oh, not that I don't like medical nutrition therapy, but I really wanted to work with endurance athletes. And I mean, I do find that the medical nutrition therapy that we got, the training we got, comes in handy with athletes too. But it's just the population itself, it means a lot to be able to like work in that space,
For sure. And it is a little confusing. Like I got into nutrition because of being an athlete as well, and just like that intersection of the two. And yet when I studied nutrition and then we got into the medical stuff, I actually for a moment thought maybe I'll go to med school and become a doctor instead, because it was very fascinating. But so much of it didn't directly apply to like the fueling needs, which is why I've been transparent about my story too. As a collegiate athlete, then I ended up struggling a little bit with nutrition, even though I was studying it, because it was like what I was studying about, I don't know, frankly, like obesity prevention and type 2 diabetes, like wasn't helping me when I was training 30 hours a week,
Yeah, exactly.
And so, so you, similar to me, it was like your passion for sports got you into it. And then it's like, ooh, there's a gap here.
Exactly. And that's also, like you and I have found our niche in the realm. And I think like being able to have that impact in the space is really great. And that's where like Your Diet Sucks. Like we wanted to have an impact on the fitness and endurance space too, specifically.
Yeah. It's so great. Like, yeah, the journalism aspect, you've done so much research, but also like your research in the background of athletics, environment, like your book on sustainability and all that, your experience with running and then the run coaching, the nutrition side, you're really hitting a ton of different angles. Also though, tell me more about the title.
So we kicked around a lot of different titles, and I threw out Your Diet Sucks as like, well, we could never use that. It's like so like tongue in cheek. It's like probably a little over the top. And we had this list and we kept going back to it and revisiting it. And finally we were like, we kind of liked, like it started to grow on us.
Yeah.
And I really came around to it when I sort of like got to the place where I was like, actually, I feel like this might capture a lot of folks who like think like maybe we can incept them, and they come to it thinking it's going to be like a diet podcast when it's really like your diet, like your fad diet.
Right.
Sucks is like the asterisk there.
Right. You could call it the anti-diet podcast, but you're reeling people in who think that they need a diet. Yeah.
But I liked the kind of playful, lightly confrontational tone.
Yeah.
And I just wanted it to feel casual. And when people listen, I want them to feel like they're like at a Sex in the City style brunch with their two best gal pals who just happen to be highly educated and have spent a decade in the industry.
Well, and Zoe's a comedian. So she's actually does stand-up comedy. So it's really great because she adds a nice touch into all the episodes, and then with the title of the pod as well. So
I know. I can't believe I forgot to mention that in your bio as well. But the comedic touch is wonderful. And on the Instagram too, you've made some pretty funny videos that are also like, I don't want to say only people in the field will get it, but like once you start having these conversations that are more like, wait, anti-diet culture, like going on a diet doesn't work, that sucks. Like, here's what more correct could look like. then your videos are just like really hilarious.
If you love carbohydrates and Charlie XCX, you're at home with us.
Oh, I know the one I just watched was the athletic cheese.
Yeah.
That was wonderful. And somewhat leads into, because the whole point of that video, so maybe we'll just link it so people go watch that reel because it was really funny. But a little premise of that was like, oh, if we're trying to sell a supplement and we don't have to show you the research behind it, and we just put the word athletic in front of it and it's going to sell to athletes or people, not even athletes, people who want to be athletes, right? And that's a huge market as well. And so you had a wonderful episode on your podcast, Your Diet Sucks, called The Dangers of Social Media and Influencers in the Social Media Space. And we kind of wanted to dig into that topic a little bit more tonight, although of course, what I really want people to do is actually go to your podcast and listen to the whole episode, listen to the entire podcast. So, little backstory here. I knew we were going to talk about that. I was going to listen to that episode today because I hadn't listened to it yet. And then lo and behold, this morning, last week was Thanksgiving and we had tons of leftovers. So we've been like eating through our leftovers. We bought a ton of food for the holiday. We had people over. So I didn't necessarily buy more food yet for the week. And all of a sudden this morning, it was like, oh, we don't have any food in the house except for turkey, which I don't want to eat anymore. And I don't want to eat that for breakfast right now. And so what's really funny is like the night before I was on Instagram, I was scrolling and, a friend of a friend of a friend, also a dietitian, posted, here's your overnight oats breakfast. So quick and easy, hit your protein goal. And so this morning, as I had no food, I was like, I scrolled back to that account and I was like, let me just make this for breakfast. As if I'm a dietitian. I know how to make overnight oats. I know how to do that. But I specifically was like, let me try this because it's a tried and true recipe. Also because I don't like overnight oats. and so I thought
what can do for a person.
I mean, I really don't like overnight oats, but I thought, well, this is from a dietitian who said it's good. I should trust her, right? So I did it. And first bite, I'm like, ew. I don't like this. But it was so funny because I was thinking about it and I'm like, man, I just got influenced. Even I just got totally I'm a dietitian. I know how to make a healthy breakfast. Okay, I kind of screwed up. I didn't have good choices this morning, but even I got influenced of this must be good because it came from so-and-so and she said it's high protein and she said it's healthy. And it was crap. It still tasted I'm not saying it was crap. If you like overnight oats, that's fine. I don't like it. Right. And so I just thought it was.
Oats are just not my vibe either. So safe space.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for validating that. And I just thought it was so hilarious because I'm here I am going to talk to both of you on a podcast about how easily we can get influenced by people on social media.
I think that was one of the big, really humbling takeaways for me in researching that episode is diving into the psychology of why do these things work? Because they do work on me.
Oh, yeah.
And I work in media, I have worked in social media and social media strategy. I have been the person trying to capture other people's attention. Mm-hmm. And I just let my attention loose to be captured by companies all the time. Mm-hmm. And I think that being aware of the ways in which we're all susceptible is just a way that we can consume media more mindfully, but none of us are above it. And in fact, studies show that people who think they're not susceptible tend to be the most susceptible. So I think this is something we can all approach with a solid dose of humor and humility.
Yeah, and I think a takeaway for me this morning was just that reminder of duh, Lindsay, this is why you don't need to fall for everything you see on social media and trust in what you know. And it's just a little learning lesson, right? But we can also what's kind of funny for me and just that wasn't the best breakfast, but that's okay. There's many more breakfasts for me to eat in my lifetime. So it's just kind of a funny little reminder for me, unfortunately, can really do a lot of damage for other people who are truly trusting and believing in everything they see online.
There was actually one study that we cited in our episode where the majority of both millennials, hi, me, and Gen Z, hi guys, if you're listening. Yeah. If you guys still listen to podcasts, thank you.
Yeah.
The majority of women in this poll had said that they had been exposed to a fad diet on either Instagram or TikTok and had tried to pursue that diet. And it was the majority of women in that survey had pursued that fad diet despite negative consequences like low energy, feeling bad, illness, things like that.
And that is really hard to unpack. And I'd be interested, Kylee, in your perspective as a dietitian. I work with so many clients that do frankly know better with quotes around it. Like actually just today started working with a new client who like is a certified personal trainer with bachelor's in nutrition degree. She's not a dietitian, but like she knows nutrition and yet like has still struggled. And so it's really interesting that do you find that as well, that even in your experience, like clients that you have?
Yeah. I mean, I feel like a large percentage of the people that I work with are medical professionals, actually. So I get a lot of doctors, nurses, fitness professionals, but I also think it comes back to, that the mental health component too. We talk a lot about how it's not just about like the food itself. It's about, deep down, what is somebody maybe struggling with, trying to control, all those sorts of things. And I'm sure that you run into this a lot too. It's like, it comes down to body image and weight quite often. And I think when someone is maybe unhappy with their body or their weight, they will be influenced and like are willing to go to extremes, even though they might like quote, know better, have heard something else maybe.
Yeah. And I even wonder if because, something in them cares about health in order to go down the profession of becoming a doctor or physical therapist or personal trainer, whatever it might be. So they care so much about health. And even though they might know better, they're still just always looking and searching for that. What can make this better? What can make this easier? What can make me even healthier? And I think they really put that pressure on themselves to be the role model and the example of that. And so then they're always constantly trying things.
Yeah. And then even in like, I would say just if we're thinking of endurance athletes, we know that endurance athletes are more susceptible to eating disorders and disordered eating, regardless of like profession or anything like that. So the influence there, like, I think from my experience comes from a performance. There's a lot of like a performance gain, if I was to do this certain diet or this like new thing that somebody is promoting, that this athlete is promoting, pro athlete or something.
Yeah.
So I need to try that because I want to be able to improve my performance.
Yeah. You guys, on that episode, you hit on supplements a lot. And, that first and foremost, when it comes to really solid nutrition for health and then nutrition for performance, like there's very little research and science to actually support dietary supplements, in pill, capsule, or powder form to really be the thing that's making the difference, right? There's not great research in supplements to support their efficacy and safety. And yet so much of the content on social media that people are influenced to buy is buy this supplement, buy this powder.
That lack of science is a feature and not a bug of the system. Supplement companies have been lobbying Congress since the early 90s to ensure that they have no burden of proof on the claims they're making. If you compare our supplement law to that in Europe, in Europe, you have to be able to prove something is safe before it enters the market. In the US, like a couple folks can get really sick and even die before it even comes up, which is wild. And there's literally, this is one of the reasons we wanted to make our goofy reel about athletic cheese. You can say this will make you 10 times faster and you can just lie. Like that's the thing you can do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and I remember in the episode, we played this YouTube like commercial from, was it the 90s or something?
Featuring Mel Gibson. It has not aged well.
and they like the government was like going to come take his supplements. And so, and it was a ploy for people to like try to get people to call their congressman, right? To like, for them to not have the government controlling supplements and regulation.
And at that time, it was actually that was the most letters that had ever been sent to Congress pushing back against this proposed law to regulate supplements, because people really like supplements. We like and we're very attracted to the idea that one pill can make you feel better, can make you faster, can make you healthier, make you lose weight, whatever it is.
Yeah.
You're always one pill away from this supported outcome. And that's a really like attractive narrative. It just unfortunately has never once been borne out.
It is. And for whatever reason, as you're talking, I was thinking about things that my husband said before based on like movies, Like in the Matrix, it's like, which pill are you going to take? There's some other movie that he mentioned to me the other day. I don't know. Maybe I was only half paying attention to him, admittedly, but where it was like, take this pill for your superpowers, right? And I think that's what, if only we could do that in life, it's this very like Hollywood thing or a way of the future. And we would like to think that 2024, like the future is now, like just take this pill and all your problems will go away, or not even that. It's not even that your problems will go away. It's that you'll be superior. Right.
Yeah. And that narrative has been allowed to thrive and supported because there's so much money in that industry. And so a lot of money will go to athletes because of the lack of both the supplement industry and specifically and the lack of regulation in terms of like policing influencers selling various things on social media. It's really been allowed to thrive there.
Okay. So the three of us are business owners and we use social media to market our business. And so because of that, on some level, we're all trying to influence people in some way. But, in our hearts, we believe that it's with the best of intentions. We're trying to influence them to better their lives, better their health, better their performance and all that. I'm not sure what my question is. I'm just like, my brain is just going. But I guess maybe for you, Kylee, when it comes to nutrition and your platform and keeping specific to supplements, like, do you have any like ethical boundaries that you think about when you are marketing your services as a dietitian and maybe the use of supplements to potential clients and how that might impact them? Like what are the boundaries you've set to make sure that we are influencing people as positively as we can and not going down that easy path of just marketing gimmicks?
Well, and I specifically, and anyone can do whatever they want, but I specifically don't partner with any like supplement companies as a dietitian just for transparency. And I like to educate people on, if you are going to choose a supplement like the certified for sport labeling, which we talked a little bit about that on some of our episodes, like how do you make the best choices or decisions if you do need a supplement, and like what are the situations where this might be needed? And so when I'm chatting with an athlete or something, even iron supplements, like I'm pretty adamant that like there are things we could be overlooking if somebody is reliant on an iron supplement. And so I'm all about kind of trying to like dig deeper into what could be going on with an athlete. And often, I feel like I see this oftentimes it is related to underfueling, but people want to just maybe take a supplement and like kind of brush the underfueling idea out of the way. And they're like, but my ferritin's not going up, and I'm, it's
right.
They're taking the supplement, but it's not going up. And it's just like, there are other reasons maybe for that. And so I guess my point being is like digging deeper with an athlete before saying like, let's try this supplement or something.
Yeah. And it can be frustrating as not just a dietitian, but just as a business owner to see other people who are partnering with these brands and they have their discount codes and they're making tons of quote passive income based on these sales. And it's like, I ethically struggle to do that. Like, would love to have more followers, would love to make more money, but it's like, but that's not what the people, it's not really helping them. And it can be harmful.
Yeah. That's a tension we actually really tried to wrestle with in this podcast, because I don't think it's useful or helpful to like blame other people for capitalism doing its thing. Like looking at athletes, looking at people that violate professional boundaries. I think that's a different thing than like the low grade sort of like that comes with influencers and athletes selling things.
Yeah.
I think that these people are exploiting weaknesses in the systems, and I'd be way more interested in fixing the systems than like yelling at random influencers for selling bullshit green supplements. Like, take your money, girl, get it. Like, I don't care.
Yeah.
You're not doing anything wrong. I don't love it, but, and I think that I would just be more interested in like, I think so often we tend to individuate things. We blame the athletes or we blame the company rather than like, well, these people are all doing things that are totally okie dokie in our current system. Maybe we ought to tighten some of that up and think about like, well, why has this become the most predominant way that people need to make money? Maybe
I know.
we should take a look at the economy
Right.
in general and zoom out and see like, why is this happening rather than just like, oh, I hate it.
Right.
So it is hard because we both do occupy a space where we realize we have influence, and we talk a lot about the ethics of recognizing that responsibility and knowing that that it is a responsibility for us. And we do feel a sense of obligation to our audience and to the support that we've earned through transparency, through hard work, and not trying to, throw that away on like endorsements and, fast cash.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, another thing I was just thinking of is I think the three of us all agree that a culture of dieting and try this diet, try this supplement to air quotes for everybody listening, like get healthy, get in shape, lose weight, all that. And so we kind of try and fight against that a little bit. But there's also a whole section of our country and the world that maybe doesn't understand the unique needs of like athletes per se. And I also saw something on the internet recently of other influencers in the health space that were really upset that athletes were endorsing cereals that had sugar in them. So because these people felt that sugary cereals shouldn't be promoted by athletes. And I am not a keyboard warrior, but I actually did respond to this one, mostly exactly what you were saying of like, hey, like they can do whatever they want. Their job is to be an athlete. Like, don't judge them on their decision to partner if they're doing that to make money. Like, that's their decision, whatever. But then also I had to respond back like, athletes can eat cereal. Like athletes are allowed sugar, right? So there's that whole side as well of, I think, like expectations on people, and there's just this world of social media that, this really wasn't a problem 10 years ago. Who would have known if an athlete, liked certain cereal or took a certain supplement or not?
One of the really interesting things that we go into is the history of athletic influencers. Mm-hmm. Even back in ancient Rome, gladiators would endorse olive oil and would endorse wines. Like,
I remember you guys saying
forever, humans have looked up to athletes. Like, if Paul Mescal and Twister was selling wine, I would be so in. But we have always looked up to athletes. I mean, even Coco Chanel endorsed, she's not an athlete, but Coco Chanel endorsed the grapefruit diet. Like, we have always looked at athletes and people that have influence to decide how to make decisions, because we just can't make all the decisions that we think we're making. And we outsource a lot of that emotional and mental labor to people who we trust their logic and reasoning as like a shortcut for our own. And you look at someone and you're like, oh, they look great, they're healthy, they're successful, I'll eat that cereal. And I would just say that every time you DM an athlete for, selling sugary cereal, like, there's a lobbyist in Washington just absolutely laughing on his way to the bank.
Zoe was mentioning, like, you can look at these athletes and it looks like, oh, they're taking this thing or whatever. Maybe I should do that too. And something that comes up a lot is that mental health aspect as well, and the influence that social media can have, the negative influence it can have on people's mental health. And particularly, I think it was a stat that we were talking about, like young girls and body image and dieting and things.
Yeah.
So, just point being that, like, just looking at someone and saying, oh, they're taking this thing, I should try this or whatever, might not fully give you the picture of what someone's experiencing. And then if somebody were to try that, who knows if it would lead them down a negative path towards disordered eating or an eating disorder. And I have seen that happen with people that I work with. I'm sure you have too. Just like,
absolutely,
they weren't intending for things to get as controlled or like out of hand as they got. And then the unfortunate consequences of that.
And it's not just people who consume social media. So social media is one of the 3 industries dominated by women, which is porn, modeling, and social media influencing, because those are aesthetically driven industries. And women, because of our particular socialization history, thrive in that space. But there was a study that actually looked at the mental health of people who identified as influencers themselves and found that their mental health was impacted by the way that they posted. Because when you are influencing and when you're trying to use your physical body and the very stuff of your life and of your personality or your persona as a way of marketing someone else's material or even marketing your own material, it causes people to self-objectify, to view yourself as an object and not a subject, as a passive thing and not a person. And that can really warp a person's mind. And in fact, in this study, it showed that like particularly women who do this end up viewing their body, like the way that they viewed their body was much more just like just as like pieces, not as parts of a person, but of like pieces of meat. And I think that as more and more young women identify that they want to be influencers, is that for the love of God becomes somehow a job that people want to seek out.
Yes.
I think we should be really cognizant of the ways in which having to perform that can really warp a person's mind.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. It's really quite crazy to think about just like the pressures that a younger population now who maybe is aspiring to be an influencer. And because I see that, I see high school girls, I see college girls that are creating their social media accounts, even claiming to say like, I'm creating this account to inspire other people or to help other people or to show my life. And they're putting that pressure on themselves to be an influencer, to be maybe even a role model. And it might even be like coming from a good place. I think it's great that they want to share or inspire, but it puts a lot of pressure on their own mental health and their own expectations of themselves. And then, like you mentioned too, if it is too focused on the aesthetic side of things, which, you know, can easily happen, especially on the apps of Instagram and TikTok, which are picture and video based, you know, then we're going down a really negative rabbit hole. And we've seen that. I don't have the research in front of me right now, but we've definitely seen that in research that mental health, as social media use increases, mental health declines, eating disorders seem to be increasing. We saw that for sure during COVID, which was for a variety of reasons, that eating disorders like 10 times themselves. That was for a variety of reasons. But one of the reasons was just being on the internet more and social media more and being exposed to things more that made people go down that path of wanting to perfect how they look or post their bodies more or change their diet and their eating habits and their exercise habits. And I think that's just a really dangerous place to go. It's a lot of pressure that young people are putting on themselves to present an image of themselves that isn't even necessarily real.
Well, and I think from an athlete perspective, you can see it sometimes where an athlete might have to do certain things for a brand, which I'm not saying that that is like wrong or right or whatever, but over time, like some athletes, like they have to get off social media or have to take a break. It's like too much. And they just like, it makes me think about like them just like wanting to be an athlete, but then they have to do this other stuff on social media and how much pressure that's putting on them.
And these platforms are not neutral actors. These algorithms are intentionally predatory so that particularly, I mean, there was the Facebook whistleblower, I think in 2021, showed that in Facebook's own research, they knew that they were serving young girls pro-eating disorder material within days of signing up for the app. These like fake like accounts that they created that were supposed to be like archetypal 13-year-old girls. And within days, they were served eating disorder content because the algorithm is incentivized to capture your attention and to matriculate you along this pipeline of increasingly more extreme material. So like maybe you're like me and you come for like the fun jar salad videos. Like that's my ASMR. I love to just watch a salad get made in a jar. But like within a few days, you'll be on some really frightening stuff. And as like, someone that exists in the fitness space, like I don't know if you ever flip over to the like Instagram Discover page, but that is a dark place. If you like,
it is,
because I try to be really cognizant about how I cultivate my feed. And even so, the algorithm can sense things in me. It knows where my hunger.
Well, all it takes is one not so great video that you did get sucked into to then, you know, because, and this is actually something I do with my clients in a specific phase of working together. I actually challenge them to go on whatever social media platform they're a part of. And first of all, immediately unfollow anything that pops up on their feed that they get a pit in their stomach of jealousy, or now I don't feel so good about my life anymore, or that, or I've got to change everything, right? Whatever it might be, to instantly unfollow. And then I give them a long list of more positive when it comes to nutrition, exercise, body positivity accounts. And it's been interesting over the years of working with clients, the feedback I get of like, oh yeah, within 3 days, like I'm getting a lot more like food freedom accounts pop up, a lot more body positivity accounts pop up, or more diversity in body shapes and sizes and genders and ethnicities and things like that. So that's been a fun little experiment that you can change your feed. But again, all it takes is getting sucked into one reel for a few seconds too long, and suddenly more weird things pop up.
To that point, though, there was another study that demonstrated that study participants who intentionally followed accounts that promoted body diversity, it increased their body satisfaction. And I think that, like, if you are on the internet, you can just forget what a human woman looks like what an actual living being.
Oh, absolutely. Well, especially with AI now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's insane with AI. This is a whole nother world we're entering with people creating fake images of what people look like.
Yeah. But again, like knowing that you can't, influence is a double-edged sword. We're trying to harness our influence for good and to disrupt narratives. And other people, once they, again, acknowledge the prior that we're all influenceable, how do we use those same tools for our own ends and not the ends of an algorithm or of a company or a soda or Wheaties or whatever?
Right. So, okay, going back to earlier, you were like, let's not blame the person, the individual, the athlete, but more so like it's the system that's kind of screwed up. And I think part of this is because, as you mentioned, we have our experts. We have expert coaches, expert doctors, expert dietitians, whatever it might be. There's fields outside of health that you can be an expert in. You can be an expert knitter, writer, lots of things you can be an expert at. But suddenly we have this world of like influencers that are the ones selling the dietary supplement, selling the diet, selling the magic pill, selling the best knitting fabric in the world and using all their claims, when I think the issue is like we should be going to the experts for this information, not the influencer. But in order for the expert to really like get their voice heard, they have to somewhat turn into an influencer as well. And that feels like a second job. I've felt that way. I'm like, I'm a dietitian. How come I feel like social media is like a second job to keep up with? So I think...
Well, you have to like speak in, this is part of it. Like you have to speak in the right way or you will not capture attention of an audience. Like, we can go, like, you can see it if like you have like a really well crafted, like scientific post or something. And it's like, all the data with the studies and all this stuff, it gets like 2 likes or something. Or like when we release an episode and it has all of our sources cited on it and like no one pays attention. But then you go and you like craft like wording in a certain way and do a reel, like funny reel that is like really engaging, like Zoe has done. You get all this attention, and as a, we're all, again, business owners here, but like as a business owner, that can be exhausting. Like, it's like really hard. To, like, oh my gosh, like, how do I phrase this in a way that is going to resonate with people?
Yeah. And I think also one of the additional challenges is that culturally we're at a moment where like, we're not that hot on experts. I don't know if you've been paying attention to what's going on in the news.
Yes. Not people are relying on influence, like at the highest of levels. People are listening to influencers more than experts at the highest of levels.
Yeah, like our attorney general is going to be an influencer. I'm not scared at all.
Right.
And I think another thing is that a lot of times the ends and ambitions of an expert are going to be at odds with that of the algorithm or with that of social media. I'm always delighted when I see people who are able to marry both. And I think Kylee does that so well. And I think there's lots of other science communities who do it quite well. But they're never going to do as well as like a random Kardashian or a Jenner, And it's really hard because experts know that everything needs a ton of caveats. Everything needs a ton of nuance and context. And social media knows.
And that's just not as exciting.
And that's not as exciting. So you have to find other ways. And I think that for us, a lot of times we come down on the side of humor or trying to speak to people's like emotions around food rather than, again, like not trying to take our top off on the gram just yet.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I didn't know exactly what you meant by top off, and then I figured it out.
No shirtless YDS pics is what I'm saying. Fully clothed women who are not subjects.
Yes, absolutely. Okay. So this is such a wonderful conversation to bring awareness and help people. I think like one of my takeaways for our listeners is to remind them, like, just remind people it's not you, it's the system. We're all vulnerable and susceptible to being influenced, but like as best that you can, if you see something and you feel like, oh my gosh, should I be doing that? Should I be eating that? Should I be buying that? Pause for a moment and see if you can find an expert and see what they have to say about it. Maybe you even need to like fill your feed with more experts in the first place. As you guys did that episode and did all the research about how we are being influenced with our diet and our health on social media, what are some of your takeaways that you want to share to listeners on like how to best move forward?
I think that a healthy dose of skepticism is really important because there was one study that showed that the majority of diet and fitness evidence that was surveyed by an AI in this particular study found that most of it was incorrect or like lacked nuance or context. So always be so skeptical of anything that feels too good to be true, feels too simple, is super hot takey, is really provocative or meant to gin up fear, like anything that really like immediately makes you feel something. It's probably not true because the truth is usually like confusing and boring as hell and doesn't make you feel much of anything. So whenever you feel that huge emotional response, I think that's when you can sort of do a gut check. And I don't think everyone needs to become a professional fact checker, but I think developing a practice of how do I, when I'm outsourcing decision making to someone, why? Like pausing for a second and thinking about where that impulse is coming from.
And I love that like pause and reflect on where the impulse is coming from. And that might also be your trigger to like step away from social media for a moment and like get back to like your life, like in that moment, what's going on, because our brain is thinking so fast when we see something, read something, watch something. And it's just going down this rabbit hole of thinking, like, I must need this. I have to do all these things. And it's like, pause, wait a second. Like the sun is shining, the birds are chirping, like everything's okay. I can take a moment to reflect on this. I don't have to act so quickly because I think that's another thing just with social media in general is like the quicker, the better. Mm-hmm. So little healthy dose of skepticism, like you said, pause, reflect on where this emotional response is coming from, and then like step away from social media for a little bit, I think.
Yeah. And I think just one more point to that is that, again, no one is above this. Everyone is subject to it. And in fact, the things that allow us to be influenced are very important, beautiful human things. Again, one of the reasons that particularly women dominate this industry is because we're amazing at building communities. We're amazing at connecting and communicating. And those aren't tools or ways of being that I'm wanting to get rid of anytime soon. So I think it's always about understanding like the things that make me vulnerable here are also the things that can make us really, really strong and give us the opportunity to have an impact on the other side of things.
I know for me personally as a dietitian, and Kylee, I'm pretty sure you're pretty darn similar. Feel free to expand. But like when I make a post that might get an emotional response, maybe because it's a client testimonial of how their life has changed or they hit a new PR or, they got a college scholarship all because they fixed their nutrition problems. And those are actually real stories. But right in that post, it might get this big emotional response and somebody might be like, oh my God, I need this. Well, for me as a dietitian, it doesn't mean that it's going to be a one-click fix, buy this thing. It's going to be, okay, let's hop on the phone and have a conversation about you. Because again, that's my style as a dietitian is a personalized approach in coaching, nutrition coaching. And so I'm happy that I caught your attention with that post and I influenced you to book a call. But from there, I don't know that, this is absolutely going to work for you. We're going to have a discussion about it. And I think that's really important, at least in the nutrition realm. I think you would agree, Kylee, that like there isn't one solution to everybody's nutrition problems. We have to have a discussion about it and personalize the process.
Well, and I think that's part of the problem, right? It's like the space is so dominated by meal plans and macro counting and a quick diet that you can do with this person. And when I like, same thing, if I get on the phone with someone, it's at least a 30-minute conversation before we even talk about like whether it's a good fit or not, because
right.
we want to get to know the person and also explain that it's a process, like you're saying. It's not a 10-page nutrition like plan that is not personalized.
Right.
And I think it's sometimes hard for people to understand that there's a lot of work that we do that challenges your thoughts and your history and emotion.
Mm-hmm.
And that might not be something that you consider look at when you're like signing up for a 30-day diet challenge or something.
And from a neurochemical perspective, when we consume like a reel that has something that we're interpreting as like dietary information, or this one workout will get you shredded abs, or like this one hack, the way that that works in our brain is it like makes us think we've already done the thing. That's how our brain experiences it. Our body definitely doesn't experience it that way. You still got to do the workout.
Wow.
But it like tricks us into thinking like, I've learned a thing. I've already done the thing. And I mean, this has become a huge problem in the realm of like Instagram therapists as well. Mm-hmm. And I think that, acknowledge like if you feel that, you watch the video, you feel like you learned something, awesome. You've identified that you have a passion for this and you're interested in it. You are going to have to do the thing, and it actually probably won't feel quite as good.
Right. That's so interesting. Yeah, I think that a lot of people, that kind of goes back to, I think, internet in the age we're living in with just like information overload. Just because you know something, just because you learned something makes you feel like you've done it already, even though it's like, no, we have to put in the work. You have to go through the process. Knowledge itself isn't power anymore, right? That used to be a saying, knowledge is power. And it's like, it's not. It's the application of that knowledge into your own personal life. It's action on it.
I think action is power.
Actually, yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, one other, I hope this isn't too off topic as we're kind of wrapping this up, but you, naturally in this conversation, you dropped some information about women fitting in spaces that like aesthetics kind of dominate, including the influencer space. I think in your episode, you also mentioned that women are more easily influenced as well, although we're not sure if that's because of our sex and how our brain works, or just because there are more women on social media. Am I correct in that?
Yeah, that's correct. Like there's not like it's not like the lady brain has a certain like easily influenced pathway, but there are more women both acting as influencers and just on social media in general. And again, like because of the way that we're socialized, a lot of us are very attuned to what our communities are doing. We're very attuned to really subtle messages from people around us. And I think that it's sort of that like maybe the more nurture / some other confounding variables, which is why I think it's so important that we really wanted to reach a female audience with this, because it's not like something's broken in our lady brains. It's our superpower of connection and compassion and community building that can have a downside if you don't understand it.
Well, and I think this is why I'm so grateful that the two of you have your podcast now and joining in the mission, and why I started this podcast too, is because I like social media and I do use it, but I think that when you can have a conversation and really, think something out from start to finish and really explain yourself we're going on close to an hour-long episode here. And, I've done my podcast for 4 years. So I've got 200 plus hours of content that people can really, if they have the time and the will, can really learn more than just a 7-second reel or one post where they're just the sole person kind of interpreting it. I don't know if you came across this in your research at all, but as you know, this is the Female Athlete Nutrition Podcast, and I have been focusing on female athletes for the past 5 to 6 years now. Interestingly, prior to this, I actually did work in an all-male population. And it was an earlier time frame. So that was mid 2010s. So that was early to mid 2010s. Less people were on social media, but I even felt like then at that time, the men that I was working with, they did prefer podcasts and books more so. And this does not mean that women are not listening to podcasts and books. What I'm saying here is I'm living in my little world right now of only females and helping females. So in your experience working with all people who identify of all different genders, like, is there a trend towards different content maybe for the men? Is like, and are they influenced differently? Okay, sorry if this is like a run-on question, but I'm going to go to my husband because he's the number one man in my life. Like, he loves podcasts and there are ads on there, but you just skip. You just fast forward 15 seconds. So he doesn't even listen to the ads. He's listening to only what he wants to. And he just skips through all the ads. So even though there is marketing in there, it's like he doesn't get exposed to it. That wasn't a question. That was just run-on thoughts. Do you have anything to say?
No, I do think that it's so important. That's something we just did an episode about biohacking, which is a particularly male phenomenon. And it does thrive on social media, but also in podcasts. And I think that we are really interested in how people's gender and their performance of gender sort of makes them more attuned to different communities, different diets, different media sources. And again, there's more women present on social media. I actually don't know about the gender breakdown of podcasts in general. I would be curious to learn because, dear God, I don't understand how you can listen to Joe Rogan for 3 hours straight. I want to know.
They do. My husband does.
Neurochemically, I need to know how.
They do.
They do. Yeah. I used to work in special operations. It's the all male population. Every day it was like, but Lindsay, Joe Rogan said this, but Joe Rogan said that, but Joe Rogan, it was just nonstop. Yeah.
Yes. And I think that has given them the ability to put a veneer of like, well, I'm not influenced. These aren't influencers. They're podcasters. And it's like, sure, man, whatever you need to tell yourself.
Yes. My husband says things like that.
It's interesting that even gender affects like how much we think we're able to be influenced, how we perceive influence. And I think that that's always something that we're interested in unpacking. I'd be curious to know how gender impacts what mediums people pursue, because we know that women pursue social media, social creatures. But I'm curious if, how people perceive of their own gender, if that impacts, if they're more into like single channel communication.
Yeah, really interesting. So something to be explored, to be curious about. But at the end of the day, too, all people, all genders are, probably consuming some form of content on the internet and being influenced. Like we said, this isn't, even though social media and internet use is a more modern day thing, being influenced by other people goes back thousands and thousands since the beginning of time. And so I think just being aware that this is happening on a conscious level, it's happening subconsciously. So like you said, healthy dose of skepticism, pause, reflect, and then find the experts if you want to learn more.
Yeah.
Love it.
Love it.
Reach out to your local RDN.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Zoe and Kylee, for coming on. We will absolutely link your specific episode in the show notes. And again, they drop so many statistics. So like, even though we had this conversation here, you're going to want to listen to the full episode as well to learn even more and hear that full conversation through and through. But thank you for bringing it to my audience as well. And then go ahead and check out all the rest of their episodes, because I know Ruby mentioned to me, she was like, this is one of my favorite new podcasts. So she's all up in all the episodes. So we're all going to have to tune in. Okay, so we do a few rapid fire questions at the end of each episode. You ready?
I'm ready.
Okay.
You ready?
All right. If there's one food you could eat every single day for the rest of your life, but never get sick of it, what would it be?
Ice cream.
I really like mashed potatoes.
Love it.
Potatoes from like ultra marathons.
I'm like, man, like I love like I've never turned down a potato in any form.
Love it. Two very different things, and yet both, mashed potatoes, creamy, just like ice cream.
Yeah.
Okay, what is your favorite sport to participate in?
Trail running.
We're so excited. We both trail run.
No, it is. It is exciting. Amazing.
Well, she's got a burgeoning career as a dog agility expert racer.
Not really. I got into dog agility during the pandemic when
that's cool.
I've been dealing with Achilles. I just got Achilles surgery, so I was dealing with an injury, and like the dog agility was something else to do. So that's pretty fun too.
Still competing. She's still out there in the ring, you guys.
That is so cool. Yep, things are allowed to change. It's funny because somebody asked me that question before, and it's normally running, but I've been dealing with plantar fasciitis for a couple months now. And so I'm just like, at the present moment, it's lifting because that's the thing that I can do and find joy in and push myself. So it's really fun. So your answers are allowed to ebb and flow, but trail running for now for both of you. Okay, but how about as a spectator? Is it the same or different? What's your favorite sport to be a fan of?
Ooh, that's a good question.
I mean, gymnastics rocks to watch. Like,
it does.
It's so cool. And I love that there's music and cute outfits involved. And I wish I watched more of it. Like, I need to figure out how to stream like college gymnastics, but I just love
college gymnastics is intense. It's actually very, like, the energy that they have. I love watching it.
Yeah. I think gymnastics.
Mm-hmm.
I think I grew up playing and watching ice hockey. I think that's exciting. And also, I honestly like figure skating too. So the ice sports are kind of fun to watch. But notice we didn't say running. So that is interesting. I mean, I'll fully admit, sometimes I get bored watching people lap around,
I'll do it, but it's maybe not.
That's why they're two different questions, because most people have two different answers. So
if they wore sparkly leotards, I'd be a bit more in.
I'm sure there are people out there who do.
Yeah, you have like Taylor Swift medleys to run to. Like, I would go to more track meets.
Okay, last question is the hardest. If there's a female athlete out there that you want to give a shout out to for being inspiring, for being a role model for any reason whatsoever, this can be somebody just in your personal life or somebody very well known. Who would that be and why?
Oh, man, this one's hard.
This one is hard. Oh boy. Okay.
I think a lot actually about Tina Muir because, well, for me personally, she's like been very outspoken about like the injury that she was going through and the surgery she got, and that like really helped me get through my own because we had similar things going on. And then she's very transparent about her work with the environment and being a runner and her history with, I think she had Red S as well. And she's very transparent about that. And so I feel like she's a very positive person in the space.
Yeah. I might go to Claire Gallagher, who is a professional trail and ultra runner, although she recently kind of retired to pursue a PhD in marine biology. She has always used her platform to talk about environmental issues and was always just like a very, just had like a very unique personality, was like clearly not afraid of being herself. And I always really, really admired that in a space where, again, like Instagram pushes us all to conform. It pushes us all to look the same, be the same, say the same. And she, I mean, probably, maybe not, maybe intentionally, maybe not, like really fought back against that by just really speaking in her own voice and always platforming things she cared about.
I love that. So Tina and Claire, thank you for giving them a shout out and lifting them up. And thank both of you for coming on the show and doing all the amazing work that you do through the podcast, through your coaching businesses, through your book that you had put out. So great work, both of you. And I hope to stay in touch.
Yeah, same.
Thanks so much,
Thank
Lindsay.
you.
Well, everybody, thanks for listening. I really hope you enjoyed that episode. And if you did, if you are a true fan of female athlete nutrition, then I would love if you could support our podcast by spreading the word. Share a review on your listening channel, give us 5 stars. It really helps get the word out and get the show more views to positively impact others. Also, you can support the podcast by joining our Patreon. Head to patreon.com/femaleathletenutrition to consider a donation, or even better, join our membership where you get extra monthly content and perks. We don't want you to simply listen alone. We want you to be a part of a community and a movement of fierce, fit, and fueled female athletes. So patreon.com/femaleathletenutrition is where you can do exactly that, learn more, and join. A huge thanks to our affiliates and partners as well. Once again, Prevenix, Inside Tracker, Orgain, Practice Better, Jen and Carrie. Please go check them out, and their links in the show notes where you can get deals and discounts. Last, be sure that you do more than just listen. If you need help with fueling, it's time to take action. Head to my website to learn more. You can either book a free call with me to learn more about our coaching programs and how we can work directly with you, whether it's the fast track or otherwise. Or you can take our online self-studied course, Female Athlete Nutrition. You can literally sign up and gain access right now. You can explore our downloadable products, including the Red S Recovery Guide, High Iron Fueling Guide. Or if you are a coach of a team, check out our brand new Coaches Toolkit for teams. You can also just learn more. We have a blog, a Red S quiz to see if Red S is affecting you. If you need help, I want you to get help fast. Too many girls and athletes struggle with nutrition, but you don't have to any longer. You can rise up with the power of nutrition, take action today in any of these avenues, and become fierce, fit, and fueled. Links in the show notes, and we'll see you next time.